Welcome to the Relationships Inside Out podcast with Doctors Gregory Siebert and Kimberly Murray, licensed marriage and family therapists. Join them on this journey as they explore the ins and outs of relationships.
Welcome to Relationships Inside Out, where today we have a very special guest, Angela Doss, International Board Certified Lactation Consultant.
Welcome, Angela.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So let's start by having you share a little bit about yourself, how you got into this field, what you do, all the things.
Yeah, I'm an International Board Certified Lactation Consultant, or an IBCLC, as some people know them. And that just basically means that I have the top credential for supporting women, family, and breastfeeding. It is a field that most people are RNs, but I'm unique in that I am not. And I have a private practice here based out of Fort Collins, Colorado, called Motherhood Untamed Lactation. And I got into this, it was one of those things that when you have a baby, your whole world changes. And I had a background in marketing and business development and went, naturally, I'm going to become a lactation consultant. I think it just was what my heart said, like, this is where you're going to go. And it took me about 7 years to get here. I listened to it a little bit and I was like, that just seems like a lot of work. And eventually decided, really through the pandemic, of course, a lot of us changed our worlds. And I thought, you know what, you get one damn life, and this is where my heart says to go. So I went to work and was pregnant with my third baby, and also opened a business, which is like my fourth baby. So, so I had twins. My real human baby was born about the same time my business went out into the world. And so they kind of grew alongside each other, and it's just a beautiful gift. I'm so thankful and blessed to be here. I have 3 kids. They're 8, 5, and 2. And I've been married to usually my favorite human for about 12 years now.
Marriage.
Marriage.
I'm so glad you're here. Angela is an incredible resource in Northern Colorado for mamas and partners who are wanting to chest feed or breastfeed their babe after birth.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the importance of your role. I think there's a lot of new parents who are not familiar with this role if they haven't been told, or any of your family or friend haven't used a lactation consultant.
I think most of us prepare for birth. Like, we read books, we hire a doula, we are picky about the place that we birth and the people that are allowed into our birthing space. The one thing I hear over and over and over again from my clients is, I wish I would have prepared for breastfeeding. I think they just assume that it's going to be simple, and then they are like hit with it. Like, even though it's like natural, it's not necessarily intuitive, and it's time sensitive, and it, there's all this stuff that goes along with it. And so I think that people find me through their like, oh crap, this isn't working. Maybe baby's not gaining, or their body hurts because latching hurts, or it's just freaking hard. And so I find that most people come to me, they're pretty low. They're like, I'm going to quit, but I thought I would try. That's not unusual for me to feel like I'm like, no pressure, but this is my last stop. So I think it's getting better through social media, we're kind of in a like coming back to, and maybe this is just in the Northern Colorado area, but I don't think so. But we're getting a little bit more holistic and natural minded, I feel like, in the birth world, and people are wanting to breastfeed, and so it's coming back to, I think people are seeking those resources in advance of being like up the creek. And so I would say 50-50 people reach out to me postpartum and they're like, oh my gosh, I just had no idea how hard this would be. Or I have 50% that took a breastfeeding class either with me or someone else. I have online breastfeeding, parenting, and baby care classes, because in addition to being a lactation consultant, I'm a certified new parent educator. So I study the whole first 3 months of life, really, and how you become parents together, how you understand what the heck your baby needs. And I also teach at the hospital's breastfeeding classes. So I would say 50% of my people have taken that and have some education But for the most part, it's like trial by fire, and it's just hard, and they figure it out along the way.
A lactation consultant, I really want to punctuate, even for us. So my husband and I had challenges with breastfeeding with our first, because we gave birth in Florida, to the point that like there was some physical issues for me, some major ones. And seeing a lactation consultant is what saved that relationship. So for some couples, it really can be that make or break of being able to breastfeed.
Absolutely. I feel like I I I say my work is wholly, like, not in a religious aspect, but it's just so sacred to be invited into that really intimate setting in a family's world, and to support, like you said, it is often what kind of makes or breaks it. It's, if your body is damaged and every time you try to feed your baby, it is like your toes are curling, your shoulders are coming up,
The
that you just
tears.
yes, you just can't. First of all, the milk's not gonna flow, and second of all, who wants to keep doing that?
Right.
Like, and so it really is, like, my responsibility, and I don't take it lightly, to support healing and to support, the baby figuring this out. I have 2 clients for for every family that I see. I have the couple and mom and her partner, dad, whatever that might look like, and I have the baby. And the, like, kind of catchphrase of my business is where babies are heard and moms are held, because
Mm.
my job is to hear your baby, because I'm the expert in babies, not the expert in your baby, but the expert in human babies and human baby feeding. And I really listen to those babies and then figure out also, like, what the heck does the mom actually want? And so we navigate from there.
Can you speak more about the parent coaching that you do? What
Yeah.
that looks like?
Yeah, I do I don't know that I would call it parent coaching. Coaching, teaching, maybe interchangeable, but I do have a parenting course that's available that just goes over a lot of, like, how do you become a family together? How do you go from husband and wife, or however you want to label yourselves, what that dynamic looks like, to parenting? And how do you add in one or then subsequent babies together? What does that look like in your roles at home? Do you need to divide differently? All the way through, like, expecting what budgeting might look like. And so um it really is kind of inclusive of all the things that might happen with having a family versus just being a married couple.
Beautiful.
And what are some of the things that you have or you see arise with couples, the problems that you typically have to help them navigate around this? Because I can imagine not only is it hard on the individual level for the mom in terms of expectations for breastfeeding, what it was supposed to look like, right? This kind of
Yeah.
ideal versus what it is looking like, dealing with that stress, and then also the relationship dynamic and how that's managed dyadically. And so what does that look like with the couple, and what are they struggling with? What do you help support them with in those dynamics around that?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest one is, like, even for moms that didn't birth their baby and grow their babies, I think on a fundamental level, women and men are different when it comes to wanting a baby. Even if you're adopting, using surrogacy, whatever your path to having a newborn and a baby in your family looks like, to kind of stereotype a heterosexual dynamic, is the mom is, like, so pulled to be be everything. And it's almost like their partner is just support of the mom, instead of being equally as passionate and obsessed, if you will, with the care of the baby. So I think that's the biggest thing I run into with families and see, is that the mom's doing everything and the dad's just kind of on standby, and they don't really know what to do because they haven't had an opportunity to do it. And moms are a little, like, super tired, like newborn babies. Hello, they're pretty tired. And really, like, 0 to 2, you're tired. And your babies are busy, whether they're keeping you up all night because they're brand new, or they're nonstop because they're 2. I see people just, the mom is doing a lot and the dad's kind of on standby, whether by default or because that's the position he chose to be in that dynamic. And moms are pissed, frankly. They like don't have words for it maybe, but there's this underlying just, like, fire in their belly that we might call resentment. So I think that's the biggest thing I run into is like, I'm doing it all. I feel like I breastfeed, I diaper change, I'm up in the middle of the night, I'm the default nighttime parent, I'm all of these things. They might not have words for that, but that's what I like outside looking in am seeing a good portion of the time.
I imagine sometimes the, I'll say dad or male partner here, might want to be engaged, but then mom's kind of gatekeeps, that maternal gatekeeping of, even if dad wants to be involved, often I see moms shut the other partner out of, nope, I've got this. I don't need you. Or nope, I say she, I have daughters. She needs her mom. Nope.
Yeah.
And so it kind of shoves dad sometimes into that role, even if he wanted a more active role in parenting.
And when I have couples in this exact situation where the mom, and you ask, let's work on relinquishing some control, and cringe.
It's hard. I can't
It's
trust
hard.
him, or I know baby best, or
Mhm.
especially if we're breastfeeding.
And
Especially for breastfeeding. I was just gonna say, like, I say often breastfeeding is about more than just food for a baby. It is co-regulation. It literally is researched back to co-regulate their system, lower their blood sugars, regulate heart rate, regulate respiratory rate. So a lot of times babies are, maybe they're overstimulated and dad might be trying, they're not hungry, dad's trying everything. And when they come back to mom, baby chills. And so we get in this pattern of like, well, only mom can fix it. And so there is some science to why that might happen easier. That settling of the baby might happen easier with a mom, whether she's breastfeeding or not. And so I think that adds into it as well. But breastfeeding is about more than just hunger. It's thirst. It's that co-regulation. I joke that newborn babies are like robot vacuum cleaners. And they can go out and they can like troll through and they can be around other people. They can maybe be held by other people, but their battery doesn't last long. And they need to go back to the docking station, which is that primary parent, generally speaking, mom, especially a breastfeeding mom. And so, yeah, we see a lot of that, like, oh, just hand her over. Like, she's going to come to me anyway. So just give her to me now. And that's I think that maternal gatekeeping, like you said, Kimberly, that's where that comes up, is that like, just give her back to me. She's going to come to me anyway. Just give her to me. We really do kind of cut our partner off at the knees, if we will. We don't even give them that chance.
Yeah, and it'd be very easy for that partner to personalize that as, what, I'm not doing a good enough job. What, you can do this better. You don't like how I'm doing it. And there's a lot of, insecurity around that. I think it's very sensitive. Like, here's your parent, especially if you're a first-time parent, you're trying to figure this out, and you want to, obviously, you have some sense of perfectionism sometimes. And
yeah,
you're having somebody tell you, no, give them to me.
I even hear the dads say, like, oh, I hear this a lot, actually, like, oh, the baby just doesn't like me. Yep. Like, so yeah, talk about personalizing it, like, and really taking offense to, like, no, your baby loves you, but your baby just spent, if the mom birthed this baby, they just spent 40 weeks living inside your partner. And so of course that feels like home base. And so I do a lot of like tips and tricks, like, listen, have a burp rag that smells like breast milk and your wife that you can like put right here as your skin to skin with your baby. I talk a lot about skin to skin. In the lactation world, we say skin to skin is medicine, because it's the like easiest thing to go. If you reach out to me and you're struggling with milk supply and you're struggling with latching, the first thing I'm probably going to have you do is hang out skin to skin a lot with your baby. Just a diaper and a blanket over you and your baby, so they have access to their breasts, but no pressure. And it's good for both of you. It gets that oxytocin flowing and all of that. But dads get to do that too. And I encourage that all the time. And sometimes the little small hack that baby needs to transition their brain to thinking, oh, this is also that safe place. This is another docking station, to go back to that analogy, is maybe to have something that smells like mom, and maybe something that smells like breast milk, even if it's just a spit up rag, right? Like, we are animals. And so going back to using all of our senses and helping them feel safe on a primal level with another adult is just another tool. So you asked about parent coaching, like, those are the kind of tips and tricks that I try to roll in to avoid this, mom does it all, and dad's feeling like baby doesn't even like me.
And what does it look like for the couples who can't breastfeed, or they pump and they have, you know, a bottle where now the other partner can be involved because they can feed? Like how do you work with them and navigate that?
I think like teaching, first of all, I'm an encourager of bottles for almost every single family because you just never know. I think babies should have a skill to be able to eat when mom, if there's a funeral, if there's something tragic happens in your world, I always say you want your plan B to already be in place. Like you want baby to have a skill. I really think are things I work on in my practice is bottle refusal. I have great success with babies that won't take a bottle. It usually happens right when moms try to go back to work around 12 weeks. I want babies to have that skill set. So right from the beginning, I say right around like 3 weeks of life, we really should be introducing a bottle and allowing partner to be feeding. Now, if we're exclusively pumping and mom is, that feels best to her to pump her milk and bottle feed, or families that are formula feeding, it is just everybody needs to know how to respectfully feed baby to where baby's in control. We're not waterboarding them with milk and they have to chug it. We are just feeding the baby, and then also talking about when bottles and pumping are involved, we just elevated the amount of stuff that has to get done. There is so much dishes and it can't be mixed in with your family's dishes. It needs to be done separately. And if it's breast milk, it needs its special soap and all of these different things that now we've elevated, like what else needs to be done on the family to-do list. And so in addition to helping dads and partners like supportively feed a baby, I also talk about like what it looks like to maybe you're only giving a bottle a week or 2 bottles a week and baby eats 987 other times and your wife is breastfeeding. Well, what does that look like to make sure all of her pump parts are always cleaned? And how does she want to store milk in the freezer? What does it feel good? We call it milk management in my house. And I joke that my husband's my milk manager. Like, but every family needs that, because just because you're literally providing milk through your body as the breastfeeding mom, that doesn't mean you have to do all the laundry that comes with it and all the dishes that comes with it. And I think getting dads involved on that level makes the mom feel really cared for, takes something off of her plate, and makes the dad feel involved. So that's a one way too, that in addition to bottling, that I kind of have families try to look at how they can support each other better.
And I imagine giving, and you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but giving the bottle skin to skin, even if it's not coming from a breast, can be really helpful.
Yeah, totally. Learning those skills for babies. I always like go back to the analogy. I call babies mer babies. Like they literally are, they gestate aquatically. And so then they get out here and the first thing we do is put that adorable outfit that, you know, are like welcome to the world outfit on them, and a diaper and hat and swaddle blanket, and just how weird that must feel. And especially if you have a sensory sensitive baby, like if you have a highly sensitive baby, we come out, we can go nature versus nurture argument all day long, but we kind of come out who we are. And so I always tell people, like, if we can remove as much as of the like worldly junk from a baby, we can get them to check into like all the reflexive things they were designed to do. So skin to skin bottle feeding, like, of course, we need to keep the diaper because babies are poop machines, but babies in diapers do the best things. Like they're going to feed the best. They're going to be the most calm if we can do that skin to skin. So yeah, even bottle feeding skin to skin is like kind of where the magic happens.
I can imagine that you're probably also navigating people's narratives, or even sometimes misconceptions about what the feeding's supposed to look like. Like even on a personal level for me, I struggle when my son is like turning his head and all over the place. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't anticipate this. I don't have patience for that. And I sit through it. But if I had the expectation of like, this is going to happen, just pull the bottle away, let him do his thing. And then he'll cue when he wants it again, things like that. And I'm wondering if that's what you also navigate too, is these narratives of like what that's supposed to look like, and help build patience in the process through helping them understand expectations, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so much of that goes back to like understanding young human, not even just newborn, but like young baby infant behavior when it comes to eating, and also just like educating on, hey, I sit down at dinner when I'm hungry and maybe I'm starving and I slam my food, right? I don't even have time to talk to my husband or look up, but mama was hungry, give me my burger. And babies will have feeds like that sometimes too. But then there are days like maybe it's hot, or maybe you just don't feel great. You look like you're fine on the outside. You don't have a fever, but you just don't feel great in your body. Well, babies have those days too, but they don't speak English, so they can't tell us that. And they might just snack, and they might head thrust, and they might do this obnoxious stuff while you're trying to feed them a bottle, but they're just being a human. And so I think like reframing that to where it isn't that every 3 hours this baby is going to down 3 to 5 ounces of milk. Boom, no problem. 10 minutes and we're done.
They better.
And I think too, this goes into like, if we have multi-generational families living together, if we have grandmas heavily involved, I think this is like, not that feeding babies is new, obviously, by any means, but I think this more intuitive and respectful feeding of babies, we're making sure we're pacing the bottle so that the bottle's more parallel to the floor. And I always tell parents, like, you have to think about gravity when we think about bottle feeding. And if the gravity is with the milk and making baby drink faster than maybe they're ready to, then they don't get to be in control of eating. And so it's really like the fundamental level of learning to eat intuitively is how a baby is bottle fed. And I think when you can explain it to families like that, grandma goes, oh, shoot. And they're so willing oftentimes and open to learning. I think it's helpful when it comes from a third party. But it really is about kind of teaching and educating what that looks like for a baby, that they don't have to like lay back and just pound milk. Sometimes it might be a snack. Sometimes it's like, 11 o'clock and we stroll into the kitchen and we're just snacky, and babies are like that too.
Mm-hmm. And, just inherently babies are stressful and they create chaos. And
they are, that's weird.
But humans, we typically want control in these contexts of high stress. And part of that is structure. And the one thing that throws it off is feeding, because it's not consistent all the time, like you're talking about. And that one throws off this sense of control that we all kind of strive for, which, a lot of times it's more of an illusion, I guess, if you will. But that's where the feeding, I know, even on a personal level, I'm like, that's the part I don't have control over. Like, we can do this 3 hours, like you said, but I don't know how he's going to eat. How he slept, that might even change, when the timing of it is. And
it's so individual. I mean, I've seen babies that they want to eat every 2 hours. They're very predictable. Every 2 hours during their waking time, they're wanting to eat. Then they sleep like rock stars. Or I've seen those babies that you can try. I think it is rare, or it's a primarily bottle fed baby, or a completely bottle fed baby that eats every 3 hours. Like, that is, we are not robots. We don't just eat based on the clock. We eat based on our bodies. And so I do a lot of educating what hunger cues look like, because we assume that's crying. And crying is your baby's last, like, listen to me. I've been asking, nobody's listening. And so really like coaching, what does that like early snacky, like when you're on a date night with your spouse, this is like pre-kids. And if you are listening and have a brand new baby, you will get back to this, I promise. But like, we've all done this. We're all in the car. Everybody's like kind of hungry, but not really hangry yet. And you're like, oh, anything sounds good. And you're like, no, not Mexican. No, we just had that. And like, fast forward 20 minutes later, and everybody's like, just find a restaurant, right? We've all kind of had that dynamic, I feel like. And babies are like that too. So if we can catch them at that, like, oh, hey, anything sounds good, we're going to have that easy feed where they're not thrashing their head and they're not fussing, and they'll eat calmly. But if we wait until they're like crying and saying like, listen to me, people, I'm hungry, then we have that baby that's like, nothing really sounds good, nothing really feels good, I'm just pissed. And so if we can avoid that, and that's just kind of going back to understanding what babies, how they communicate, because they do, but it's not like you and I do.
What are some of the cues that you typically see? Like what would
Yeah,
you?
so in like a very early baby, like a brand new baby, one of the reasons why here in the United States and really across the globe, we encourage sleeping close to your baby is because that early hunger cue happens when they're sleeping. And so they're no longer that like really like milk drunk, sleeping really still baby, but maybe now they're like shifting their shoulders and they're turning their head and they're smacking their lips in their sleep, right? If you were to touch their cheek in their sleep, they're going to turn and look for a nipple. And that's that moment where you can scoop that baby up and really calmly, because they're really in their reflexive brain at that point. And brand new babies learn to feed based on reflexes. They don't know what they're doing, but they're designed with reflexes that encourage feeding. And so if you can catch them at that really calm, they're in their parasympathetic, calmed out nervous system, they feed easy. And so a lot of times it looks like a sleeping baby, but not a deeply sleeping baby, an active sleeping baby. And then as they start to come out of sleep a little bit more, then they were bringing their hands to their mouth. And I think a lot of parents catch that cue. But then we have, again, going back to like, we are who we are when we're born. My firstborn would so patiently wait between like that, oh, I was kind of hungry and now I'm chewing on my hands, and maybe he'd fuss a little. I'd have like 15 to 20 minutes to figure it out. And then my middle child was like, she went from I'm dead asleep to I can't believe you're not feeding me right now in about like 1.3 minutes. And so you've got to also know your baby, right? Like, but that just goes back again to like education, education, education on what it might look like. And then what it might look like for your baby. But some of those are some of the earlier ones. But like I said, crying is like the like foot stomping toddler of like, you didn't give me this.
Going back to the maternal gatekeeping, inviting the other partner to learn those cues, to witness those cues, to internalize them, I think is important.
Absolutely.
How do you work through the maternal gatekeeping with breastfeeding, but other parts to include that other partner in the space?
Yeah, I think, in a perfect world, everyone would take like prenatal education, and it wouldn't just be the pregnant mom that's going through classes and then reiterating what she thinks are the highlight reel to her partner. I think like I want both partners sitting butts in seats, like listening and learning and watching the videos and seeing real babies so that they can have that sit down into their knowledge bank and their tools. But it really just goes back to educating. So I do most of I guess I'm kind of a hybrid. I do telehealth and also in person, whether it's in my office here in Fort Collins or on your couch in the Northern Colorado area. And I really try to like bring dad in, like, oh, do you see this? Do you see how they were sleeping and now we're really turning? That's that, like, you could do a diaper change right now and hand baby to mom ready to breastfeed, because in about 5 minutes they're going to be fussy. And so noticing these kind of things and then stepping in and doing what you can. If mom is primarily breastfeeding and this newborn baby, dads can totally be in tune to what that baby is needing based off their body language. And so I do my best when I'm with a family to really point out those educational opportunities with their baby, because it's different to watch, a YouTube video of hunger cues versus watching David, your little baby, do his thing. And so I really try to just involve dads. And then I also think, I'm always mindful of really trying to never undercut anyone's confidence, right? So like always building people up, because we are raw as new parents, and dads want to do well by their wives, by their babies. They want to do this well, and they do take it personal when things get taken away, when like, oh, just let me do it. And so really trying to build up that confidence of like, oh my gosh, she really soothes so well with you. Like, all those things. Like, you are a rock star diaper changer. Like, look at that. Like, perfect. Like, pointing out all those things, but really just doing the educational piece with families of like what you're doing, what you're naturally doing, because that feels right to you, is right. Look at that. Look at how she soothed. Those kinds of things, just to really build up their confidence so that they don't pass back.
How do you encourage the female partner to to Greg's point earlier, start to relinquish some of that gatekeeping and really allow the teamwork to kick in?
That's challenging. I do oftentimes share that, like, I'm coming at you with, I'm a mom of 3. I'm out of the newborn, I call it the newborn forest, where time is weird and everything's fuzzy and you feel a little Alice in Wonderlandy. I'm not in that space anymore. And if there's one thing I wish I would have heard, it's this: to allow your partner to learn how to parent with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that fast forward 6, 9 months, you're not like at your breaking point and resentful because you've been doing everything. And then when you try to say, you know what, I'm going for a night, your partner looks at you with this like deer in the headlights because they're freaked out because they haven't done it. And you're thinking, how have you not done it? We've been living this life. And it's like, well, if you haven't given them the opportunity to do all the things from bathing and feeding and nighttime routines and all of that, then they haven't done it. And at some point that falls on us.
Mm-hmm.
And so really encouraging them from the get-go to help their partner be involved on all the levels so that you're not in it alone.
And what I love about what you're saying is, from a systems theory perspective, all of us want to place blame on the other partner who's not doing anything. And it's like, well, hold on. Like, you have a role, most often unconscious, of why this is playing out. And I can't even tell you how many times that when we've uncovered this and worked on this, how much purpose that other partner feels and happiness, and that reduces the burnout for the the partner who's gatekeeping, and overall their relationship starts functioning a lot better. But it's really hard to conceptualize, like, well, how does how I feel about my baby affect my partner? They just need to step up. Like, they see what I do. Why can't they just step in? But it's not that simple.
It's not that simple. And I do think that there are a lot of like stereotypical role dynamics that come in with a heterosexual couple. Like, the mom does all of this and the dad does all of this, and that's just what we're supposed to do. And maybe that worked in the 40s and 50s, and the housewives, like, like vacuuming the house in heels and the kids are all, and the dad goes to work, right? But now that is not the life that anybody's living. Everybody's working, everybody's wearing all of these hats, and yet we just haven't kind of married the new dynamic of what households look like. And so moms are still like trying to do it all, which leads into that burnout. I think one of the most interesting things that I've watched just on a personal level, some of my very best friends are 2 gay men that adopted a daughter, and their like relationship dynamic compared to my husband and I's relationship dynamic, and our kids are all the same age. It's like wildly different. And I was talking to my friend and I was asking him, like, how do you and your husband do it so differently? Like, how do we do some of that? And he was saying, like, I think it's truly just because there aren't the roles that we had to make up our roles, versus like you had your roles given to you, basically. And we made them up, what our parenting looked like. And so I think, like, I try to take that frame of thought into coaching other parents. Like, you get to choose what your roles look like and how you allow your partner to step in and be and help and parent with you. And choose wisely, right? Like, choose wisely to avoid that burnout.
That's what's hard, right? If I come from a family where I'm used to a mom doing all the nurturing, especially as a male partner, like, I expect that. Maybe we all come with a script from our families growing up.
Totally.
And if that's my script, the idea of me doing something different may be too foreign. Maybe I don't even think to want that role.
Yeah. It's not, if it's never been modeled for you, whether it was inside the 4 walls of your own home or somebody you saw close to you, like, we can read all the books and listen to all the podcasts and take all the courses, but it's just like you said, it's foreign. Like,
right.
Not sure how to do that. Like, that sounds nice, but how do you do that?
It's tough. So, as someone who specializes in perinatal mental health, which is that period from before birth up to 5 years after, this is the most difficult stage for a couple to go through. We know that marital satisfaction and quality declines the most from the birth of a baby over any other life event besides the death of a baby. And so I can imagine, as your job, it's going to be really difficult to deal or to support with couples dealing with these circumstances, especially if they have different needs that they've never expressed or even known existed, or they have different ideas how these roles should go, or once they're in it, oh, what I thought this would be is not what I want it to be. I can imagine that's really challenging to navigate.
It is challenging. And I'm not a therapist. I hold space for people. I am like a vessel that they can offload, right? And I will just be that safe place. Sometimes it just feels good to like let it all out, right? We can't keep it inside. So I think that's one of the most important things in really anyone that supports other humans, but specifically in the postpartum stage, is knowing your local resources so I can refer out, right? Like it sounds like you guys would really benefit talking through this and having support of somebody like you, Kimberly. And like, so it is important to know your space, to know your lane as a practitioner, and to also really understand where people are at in the postpartum. It's one of the things I'm really passionate about, because postpartum mental health it's not looking great here in the US. It is, I don't have the stats, but maternal suicide is one of the leading causes in the first year postpartum. And I think it's just second to cardiac stuff and heart stuff. And so I don't tread
men
light
too. I want to chuck that plug in there of women. It's between 1 in 5 and 1 in 7 for women have postpartum depression. Men is 1 in 10, and that's what's reported. So I would actually expect those numbers to be higher. So probably closer to 1 in 3, if not 1 in 2 for women, and men aren't far behind. We don't talk about the male piece of this too.
Yeah.
Men are not far behind, yet we don't acknowledge it because they weren't the birthing partner.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing I touch on in all of my prenatal classes. Like I say, we're going to talk about elephants in the rooms. We talk about, SIDS, because that's something we're all concerned about. And we talk also about mental wellness. And I say, this is not exclusive to the moms here. This is a family unit thing, because never before have your identities changed overnight. I mean, you walk into wherever you're going to birth your baby, as my husband, Angela, and Nick, we walked in to birth a baby, and at 1:31 on a Thursday morning, all of a sudden we were mom and dad, and that never turned off, and it never changed. And it's it's so life altering, and that's a shock to the system.
And going kind of what you're saying in this sense, this starts early in terms of everything being revolved around the mom or the birthing mother.
Yeah.
Everything. And you see this in the heterosexual kind of couple, like that literature. This is where even early on the male is like, I'm not a part of this. There's no focus, or the non-birthing partner. Like there's no attention on me. No one asks me how I'm doing. No one asks your expectations. Everything's on the mom. And so even place of interventions, like early on, is how does that other partner bring them in on decision making and processes, so they can feel like they belong. And then you have the child, and then it's like, I need your help. It's like, wait, what? Like, I haven't really felt a part of this process from you or anybody. And now you're wanting me to, like, what are the expectations? And so this is as soon as there's like notification of we're pregnant, if someone were lucky in that process. So yeah, I like what you're saying in the sense of this isn't just about the mom, and we really need to find ways to support. And that's even before the baby comes.
Yeah.
Which is where you work with them too, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And I want to say, and it's not just about baby, right? So for moms, one thing I hear often too is it goes from, oh my gosh, you're pregnant. Let me get the door for you. Oh, you're so wonderful. She gives birth, and mom is now invisible again too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all about babe. And so mom is also grieving of like, hey, I'm healing over here. If she was the birthing partner, right? Hey, I'm healing, and no one seems to give a single shit that I'm healing, because they all
that I'm wearing a diaper, that I'm like, I am wearing a diaper too. My baby is as well. I mean,
how many relatives are like, oh, how's the baby? You're like, I'm doing fine, thank you.
Well, you know how many times I said that? Or like when I have clients, because I often have clients giving birth, I'll say like, okay, how is your birth? Are you guys healthy? Okay, mom, how are you? Dad, how are you? And I don't focus on babe for that reason, because all the attention goes to, oh, let me see the baby. What'd you name the baby? How's the baby? How much does the baby weigh? Oh, can I hold the baby? And we forget about mom. So she's now gone from a position of feeling cared for, getting a lot of attention, those warms, to like kind of ignored. And then dad has been ignored likely through the whole process. So both partners feel unseen and ignored. And then we have this baby and it's like, hi, I have needs. Lots of them.
On top of all the, the hormones and those shifts on both, the non-birthing and birthing partner that is there.
And hormone shift for men too. We see
They
a massive
do.
drop in the testosterone.
Yeah. And not to mention sleep deprivation on both of your parts, right? Even if like I tell people, even if it looks like your partner is sleeping at night when you wake with the baby, that sleep is not the same sleep as it was prior to them hearing their new baby that they love and their person that they love up in the middle of the night. Maybe they're trying to sleep because they maybe need to go back to work. They have a shorter leave or no leave, but it's not the same. And there's a reason that sleep deprivation literally is linked with mental unwellness, right? Mental health issues. Like you need sleep as a human. And so, yeah, there's the hormone side of things, but then there's also sleep deprivation. And I think helping the resentment and that gatekeeping of like default nighttime parenting is one of the things I see often. And that comes from like mom feeling like, oh, I was up all night. And you'll see it on the internet, memes of like the dad drinking the coffee, like, oh, I'm tired. And the mom's like laser beam looking at him like, I was up at like midnight, 1 and 3. So like, whatever, dude. And I think just reframing that to where it might look like they're sleeping, but everybody's sleep deprived. Like I always say, sleep becomes a love language in the postpartum season. And I grew up with a marriage family therapist mother as well. And the catchphrase around our house was always like, the world feels too big when you're tired, honey. Like the world feels too big. And so I talk a lot about like, what does sleep look like? That's a skill. It's a skill you got to learn. No longer can you say, I just can't nap. You got to learn. Like, and so I tell people like silicone earplugs, sound machine, a well-fed baby, pass that baby off to your partner.
Pass the baby off.
Because
that's a big one, right?
Yes, pass the baby off and close your brain down. Your phone's not allowed with you. You literally have to get serious about sleep. But the flip side of that is that then you offer that to your partner, right? It doesn't matter that they weren't up all night long. They're tired too. And so
They're
you offer
adjusting
that
to a new world too, right? So fatigue isn't just about sleep. It's also about the mental game that we've been through. I have now gone from taking care of just my needs in my house to there's a baby crying all the time. There's a sound, there's a stimulus, there's something all the time. And that is wearing whether or not I'm sleeping at night.
Yeah. So sleep becomes a love language.
So as we wrap up, what are, I guess, some closing tips or insights that you might want to share and takeaways, to share with some of our
I think I wish that everyone would really truly hear me and sink it down deep to their belly where they'll remember when they're sleep deprived. That when you welcome a baby, and it doesn't have to be your first, but primarily like, especially when we welcome our first, to remember that you're both learning to parent.
Yeah.
And to think about what the way you're setting this up looks like in 6 months, in 6 years, and is it sustainable? And to really encourage parents to trust each other with their baby. And it's not your baby. It is not just mom's baby. Like this is your baby and your family system. So to really start out the gate, trusting each other and setting yourself up to where you're both learning how to parent. I think if we could all start off on that foot, we wouldn't be, like you said, that having a baby changes your relationship negatively. Maybe maybe we could shift that a little bit if we could all be on an even playing field from the get-go and really being cognizant of the ways that you shut your partner out.
Beautiful.
I think. Yeah.
Angel, we are so grateful for your insights here and talking about something that quite frankly isn't talked about, right? We think that breastfeeding, parenthood, everyone goes through it. So it's natural, right? It's easy.
Yeah. It's a steep learning curve.
God.
It's a steep learning curve. And it's, like you said, it isn't something that we all want to like rose-colored glasses and like, oh, isn't it beautiful? And yeah, he's the best dad. And I love breastfeeding. And in our heart, we're like, this sucks.
This is the
This is
worst.
hard. But we don't want to talk about that. And so I think like getting comfortable talking about the hard, because we're all in the thick. If you've been a parent, if you've gone through this, if you're raw and real, guarantee that other person on the receiving end is going to go, yep. And so getting
100%.
comfortable talking about these big, important things.
So we will include in the bio of this episode, we'll include ways to contact Angela, because she is an incredible resource. If you are someone in Northern Colorado, or it sounds like you could meet with anyone in Colorado, if I'm correct, virtually.
It's anywhere. I have seen multiple families in different countries. I mean, telehealth and telemedicine is amazing. I'm an internationally board certified lactation consultant. So I could go anywhere in the world as long as I could speak the language and practice my trade. And so, yeah, come find me. I have a big presence on Instagram. You can find me at Motherhood Untamed Lactation. I'm a big believer that we shouldn't gatekeep information and just share good quality information with parents who are sleep deprived and scrolling the internet at 3 a.m. So you can find me there. But yeah, I am based out of the Fort Collins area and would love to support anybody that needs the help.
Beautiful. Again, this has been with Angela Doss, where we talked about breastfeeding and maternal gatekeeping and the birth of a family. I know what that process is like.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on today.
Yeah. As always, if anyone has any questions or topic suggestions or questions for Angela, please feel free to email us at relationshipsinsideout@gmail.com. Thanks so much.
Thank you.